Writer's block. It's the worst thing, right? You come down with all your ideas, you're super inspired, then you just stare at that blinking cursor and nothing. I've been there, believe me. Recently I went through a few days of writer's block and I barely got down any words at all when working on my novel. But there are 5 tips that I want to share with you today that will help you overcome writer's block and also give you a little bonus tip on the end. Stay tuned. Tip number 1, change your scenery. Or in other words, change where you write. Now, all of us love our little writing nook. I'm sure all of you have your favorite space to work in, but maybe our brain sometimes gets lazy when we get to that writing spot. So what I like to do is sometimes just take my laptop and instead of at the office, just sit on the couch and write there, or even go outside, grab a camping chair, kick my feet up on a cinder block or something, and just put on some music and write. And that often, more than not, helps me overcome writer's block. So what can you try? Maybe go to a coffee shop, grab a nice little latte or mocha latte, cappuccino, frappuccino, whatever, and just write in a different environment. Try outdoors, indoors, different chair, or even writing in bed. That sometimes works for me as well. In the early mornings, I sometimes grab my cup of coffee, hop back into bed, and type away. Tip number 2, free write or write without caring. What do I mean by this? Well, just write something. It doesn't even have to be on your current project. Just take 10 minutes, put a timer, and just start writing whatever comes to mind, like info dump as much as you can. This helps you to overcome your own creative restrictions, we might say. You might have this feeling of not wanting to go outside of the box, if you know what I mean. Like you might tend to just stay within your comfort zone when writing. So take these 10 minutes and just write whatever comes to mind. Just look at a random object like a hat or a fan or something and just write a 10-minute story about a fan who wears a cowboy hat and he wants to go on an adventure or whatever it is. So that's tip number 2, free write something. Tip number 3, and this one is probably the most important one, is step back from creating or being creative and consume creativity. What does this mean? Take time away from creating stuff to consume other people's creative work. There's this quote from the Stephen King book on writing, which is a brilliant book, by the way. If you haven't read it, please check it out. He says it's important to read as much as possible. So you can take inspiration from other authors as well, directly or indirectly, but it's super important to not just create writing. You also need to consume it. That way you can be exposed to new ways of writing, be exposed to different words or ways of saying things, and that will keep you fueled to keep creating excellent material. Like engaging with others' creative ideas will give you the spark to keep going. So take some time from your day to read something, watch something, but it's preferable that it's in written form, because if you start watching videos and you might get into a downward spiral of endless rabbit holing on social media. So try to stick to written form, but be careful. Don't let this little break from creating turn into procrastination. So don't put off writing forever after you read writing. Tip number 4, set small, manageable goals. There's a trend on Book Talk or on TikTok from writers and authors that they have like a specific word count goal for each day. Like this is very good and an excellent way to keep yourself motivated and on track to progress constantly. But avoid putting your goal at too high a level. Like stick to something manageable. I recently watched a Joe Barnard video. Like he's a rocketeer making his own rockets and going for a space shot rocket soon. But he also has a second channel where he shares some productivity tips that helps him to keep on track with his projects. And like building a rocket is a massive project, so he's someone who knows what he's talking about when it comes to tackling big projects. Anyways, I digress. So the point from his recent video is like set a timer, and he suggests 10 minutes. Like just put a timer for 10 minutes and start on something even if you don't like it. Usually those 10 minutes go by very quickly. And more often than not, you're going to want to keep going because you already started. You're going to see, hey, it's not that bad actually. I can do a little bit more. Like there are also timers like the Pomodoro technique and other similar sorts of things, but those 25-minute slots may be a bit too daunting for some of us or for those of us who have a busy schedule. So try doing a 10-minute timer for each day. Like if you work full-time or have a busy schedule, like set aside 10 minutes per day to just write, or 100 words, or whatever the goal is you want to set. Start with that, start small and grow from there. I've been doing this recently, where I've been putting off working on my book each day. So I put a timer for 10 minutes and did it. But at the end of the 10 minutes, I could keep going. So I went more. And I did another 10 minutes and another 10 minutes. And eventually I spent about 35 minutes in total, non-stop, working on my book. And I progressed a lot and it feels good. And that sense of achievement gives you fuel to keep going. And Joe Barnard also mentioned this in his video, that motivation is all about momentum. So just start that ball rolling and it will build momentum, and that momentum will keep you motivated. So that was tip number 4. On to our last tip, number 5. Revisit your reason for writing. What made you want to start this project in the first place? Sometimes the idea we're working on now is quite far removed from the original idea that sparked the story or the project you are working on right now. So it's sometimes good to just take a moment and go back to where you started. Look at the first draft that you wrote, or look at the first chapter you wrote and compare it with where you are now. Like seeing yourself progress is super gratifying. And that again feeds into your motivation, which will give you momentum, which will perpetually give you more motivation, and so on. So look at what sparked your passion for this project. And when I went back to look at some of my earlier drafts of my novel, like that sense of achievement is super rewarding. And like seeing how much I have progressed since the beginning once motivates me to keep going. So that's tip number 5. Revisit your why. Like fall back in love with your project again. And here's the bonus tip. Tip number 6. Use visual aids. What do I mean by this? Like I love to visualize the scenes in my novel. And the way I do that is like use some AI tools like Leonardo AI or Midjourney or whatever. Like even a Bing image creator is pretty good at it as well. Like write short descriptions of the scenery that you're trying to convey. And just like seeing it come to life can help you get that little spark, that little bit of extra energy. And then when you see your creation like come to life in a visual format, it might give you other ideas that you want to incorporate. Like it might create an image that adds a little detail that you didn't think about before. Like now you've got something new to add to your novel or to your book or whatever your project is. So try and make like a visual storyboard as well. I've got a specific folder just for visual inspiration of my environment, for my characters, objects, whatever it is. So I really keep making visual content as well to help me fuel my imagination. So there's a little bonus tip for you. So those were my 5 tips for overcoming writer's block. Change your location, change where you write, free write, consume creativity, set small manageable goals, and revisit why. Fall back in love with your project. And the bonus tip was to use visual aids. Create visual inspiration to keep yourself motivated. Writer's block happens to all of us, but it can be beaten. So, which of these tips did you find most useful? Do you have something that you do to overcome writer's block? If so, please be sure to leave it in the comments below. If you found this video to be useful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'd also just like to plug my website, mosquitomusings.com. There I share some blog posts similar to the content that I post here, but there you can also sign up to my newsletter and receive the first chapter of my book for free. So please be sure to check that out. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, write stuff down. I'm Ozzy. Cheers. Change your environment. Free write. Change your writing environment. Set small, manageable. Do you have other ideas or tips for me to help to come?